What is the stupidest way you almost died? I walked into a backroom freezer of a grocery store. The huge door was designed to close automatically. I knew this and went in and did what I was there to do. After 30 seconds, I couldn't catch my breath. I thought maybe I was just working too hard, so I stopped and took several huge breaths. Nothing. I felt like I was drowning out of water. I had to move as quickly as I could back outside of the freezer and feel to my knees gasping when I got out. It was only afterwards I realized for some dumb reason someone kept open dry ice in a cart inside of the freezer. Dry ice removes oxygen out of the air in enclosed spaces. I almost died from lack of oxygen and would have been an icicle when they found me. Don't duck with dry ice. It was only afterwards I realized for some dumb reason someone kept open dry ice in a cart inside of the freezer. Who was the severely irresponsible dipshit that left open a case of dry ice in an enclosed area? Did someone get fired for that? Because that sounds like something you get fired over. Dude, I did one of those home delivery type meals recently to try it out. They send everything frozen and this was the first time I'd gotten it. I open up the box, reach in to take this massive ice pack off of the food, and realize my fingers are ducking burning. They had a giant block of dry ice in there that had busted out of the plastic protector, and I grabbed that directly for as long as it took to get a good grip and lift it out. No ducking warnings anywhere besides on the ripped up bag itself. I was at a water park in Texas with one of those super tall, straight down slides. They had multiple signs saying things like, "Do not push off before sliding down." Me being an 18-year-old idiot and wanting to race my friend, I decided to push off. That extra push started my slow motion airborne flight over the slide. I was then staring 100 feet down at concrete and my other friend who had his jaw open. What felt like minutes later, I smacked back down onto the slide and made my way down to the bottom. Thank God for the engineers that planned for suicidal idiots like myself. Bro, they don't pay engineers to design water slides in Texas. They just do whatever until someone dies. Didn't a young boy die on a skeleton slide there a few years ago? I remember hearing gruesome things. I was in 2nd or 3rd grade. I was getting off the school bus and was walking around to the other side to my driveway. Suddenly the bus driver hits the horn. Scared the heck out of me, and I stopped at the edge of the front of a bus and a dump truck good speeding around. I don't know if the dump truck driver didn't see the lights of the bus or whatever, but that drive made a dumb mistake that could have cost me my life. Thinking about it, my older sister was up at our driveway waiting for me. Probably would have messed her up for life. After that, the school district changed bus routes to avoid students having to cross the road to get on or off the bus. The amount of people I see speed by stopped school buses astounds me. Just watched it happen the other day, too. Disappointing and baffling. My husband did it once, and I lost my mind. He spent all of his life in a large city and never learned school bus rules and driver's ed because they only had city buses. We moved to the country and he had no idea you were supposed to stop. Thought the flashing red lights were just like hazard lights on a car and it meant to use caution. Now he knows, but FFS, you'd think all driver's tests would require you to know those rules. Edit driver's ed was in 1970s Chicago. The incident occurred on a narrow, winding country road and we were passing in the opposite direction. He thought the stop sign was for people trying to pass from behind the bus. In no way was his mistake malicious. This is a guy that gets depressed when he has to mow the lawn because it kills so many grasshoppers. He doesn't have a malicious bone in his body. I'm Italian, but have been living in the UK for 2 years. Guess who looked at the wrong side of the road while a bus was coming off? Every time I went back to Italy I risked my life for the same reason, by getting used to drive to the left and vice versa. In the US they teach us to look both ways before crossing the street. Finally, we excel in education of at least one topic. It's so ingrained in me at this point that I'll look both ways on one-way streets as well, which honestly has saved my ass more than once. First rule of the road, just because there are rules doesn't mean everyone is going to follow them. I didn't look before I crossed the street, walked backwards while talking to my friend, got hit by a van. I wasn't wearing my medic alert bracelet to warn the paramedics and hospital that I'm allergic to Demoral. because it looks dumb and gets caught on my backpack. Besides, what are the chances I'd ever be given that? The chances, it turns out, are pretty good if you get hit by a van going full speed hard enough to nearly rip your foot off at the ankle. I survived 7 surgeries to patch me back up, was comatose for a little bit, had some blood transfusions, massive amounts of physiotherapy. Look both ways and wear your medic alerts, folks. Came very close, about 2 inches, to backing into a warehouse rack full of 2-ton coils of sheet metal when I didn't realize that my forklift was in reverse. That'll do it. I snorkeled too far out into the ocean. And it wasn't because it was a riptide. I just got distracted by pretty fish. Oh wow. This just reminded me of the one time I actually was afraid of imminent death. I was snorkeling with sea turtles in Taiwan and didn't notice I was getting too close to the coral shelf that made up the shore. There was one sandy inlet which you needed to use to get in and out. A big wave came and threw me on top of the sharp coral. I was entirely disoriented, and wave after wave was just smashing on me and jostling me, which could potentially get me stuck and drowned in any number of little crevices. After what was probably 30 seconds, but felt like 5 minutes, I managed to compose myself enough to start crawling away. I walked away with some scratches and a missing booty. I also accidentally left my passport in the bathroom of the visitor center immediately after. Ima blamed the trauma. Damn, you're lucky it wasn't fire coral. I was snorkeling 1 in FL, and we had been warned about fire coral. The ocean was pretty rough that day, so it pushed us right up to the coral. If you were on the top of a wave you would be just fine, but then it would go out from under you and drop you right on top of the coral. I was so worried about fire coral and damaging coral and or any body parts. This was on one of those tourist things in the Keys. I remember thinking the ocean was too rough. I remember a guy at our hotel said the waves were 6 feet and they wouldn't take us out in that, but they did. The craziest part is that our trip out to snorkel left late because someone had drowned on the trip before us and the Coast Guard had taken them away via helicopter. Everyone on board had to give a statement or sign a waiver or something before they could leave the boat. That's why I was late going out. Swam under a shipyard pier at night, solid concrete above me, and lost my sense of direction. Got lucky and found my way out. Edit. Thanks for all the upvotes, awards, and words of encouragement. To add more detail, a friend and I were assault swimmers attacking a ship for a training exercise at night. We would swim from pier pylon to pylon underwater, take a breath, go under, push off, and swim 20 to the next pylon, surface and repeat. My mask broke, and I was doing it with my eyes closed due to having contacts at the time. One time I just kept swimming and felt like I missed the pylon. When I went to slowly broach the surface I found myself under the concrete above. I had no idea the pier was even built like that. Put my hands up and oriented myself. It looked dark in all directions, but my gut told me to the right is where I came from. After that, I stayed on the surface. Cheers. Well, there's a new nightmare to add to my brain's encyclopedia of heck. Let me add another one for you. I get extremely drunk and go for runs at 1 AM round a farm. This farm happens to have a cave. I had a stupid idea to go exploring it with nothing but my phone flashlight. I got in a good ways and tripped, dropping my phone and only source of light in water. My phone shoot off, and I was now in pitch black 100s of meters back in a windy tunnel with multiple different dead-end turns you could take. Absolute panic took over as I shimmied and scooting my body slowly across the walls of the cave, hoping to find my way back. After what felt like an eternity, I could see the dim moonlight from outside seeping into the cave, got my way out, and checked my wet phone. Was able to simply turn it right back on AMDAWAA fine. So much panic for no reason. Drove on an interstate during a hurricane and watched all the cars around me get submerged. Being sleepy on the road. Don't. Find a spot and sleep a bit. This is absolutely the most terrifying thing to happen. I've dozed off a few times and woke up just before flying off road. Now I make sure if I'm too tired to drive, I immediately pull over on the side of the road and give myself a few minutes to rest, or call a friend and ask them to stay on the phone with you to keep you awake. I've only almost ever fallen asleep once. Highway hypnosis on the other hand has almost killed me once or twice. A few weeks ago I left work really late after a long shift and no sleep. Got all the way home and was like shit, I forgot to do something and didn't want the morning crew to have to deal with it. So I drive back to work. Mind you, it's about 30 minutes each way and a straight line in the middle of cornfields. I eventually have stop at a stop sign to turn left. I saw the stop sign because it's the only red thing in my line of sight and I have my high beams on. I stared at the sign for about a minute and only realized its existence about 15 seconds before I had to stop. Going 70 mph. I barely stopped in time. Luckily if I had blown it, I would have been fine since no one is in the road at 2 AM where I work live. God, I completely ducking forgot. When I was like 14 or 15 I found out about Breathe Play from some dumb adult comedy show we shouldn't have been watching. I was curious and dumb, so when I went to bed that night I stuck my head inside my pillowcase with the pillow over my face and tied it on tightly with a bathrobe cord. Of course my dumb little ducking idiot self couldn't get it untied again. I freaked out and was just going nuts pulling on any random bit of cord I could get my fingers into, trying to pull the pillow off. But all I was doing was compressing the knots down tighter. I remember feeling really dizzy and rapidly seesawing between desperately sucking in hot wet breaths of carbon dioxide and then just going completely still and feeling like I didn't need to breathe anymore. Like I could just lie there peacefully, then suddenly going back to gasping for air again. Somehow I eventually wiggled enough slack out of the cord to be able to get one of the loops up over my chin so I could pull the pillow away from my mouth. And all I could do for a few minutes was just lay there and breathe. I will never forget how cold and wonderful that first breath of proper air was. Ducking dumb little shit. I stuck my head in a random beaker to sniff something in chemical lab. I have been very good about wafting since. One time I was making ghost pepper hot sauce, my first time doing it, and after blending everything I stuck my whole face into the blender to get a good smell and almost passed out from the pepper gas attack that destroyed my face and lungs. Almost got my head squashed by a car due to a small pebble making me fall on the main road. Oh man, this reminds me. A dealership I worked at had 2-man teams for the lube rack. Well, I was a lube tech at the time. I was setting the lift on a full-sized pickup when my teammates started raising the lift. My head got caught between the lift and the frame. Thankfully someone saw me and screamed at him to stop. I was seconds from getting my head popped like a tomato. Taking apart a dryer completely to clean it out and get it running smoothly again. Dropped a screwdriver onto an exposed wire, huge arc and zap sound. I had left it plugged in up until I realized the incredibly smooth-brained move I had pulled. Went to go visit a friend in Gloucester, Mass in winter back in high school far from my home. I was planning on staying overnight at their house, but their mother, who I now know has mental health problems, wouldn't even let me in the house because the father wasn't home working a night shift. Friend said sorry bro and closed the door. Almost froze to death waiting outside in 10-degree F at night. A cab driver saw me slumped on a bench and woke me up. Let me get warm and drive around in the passenger seat while he picked up drunk people out on the town all night. When he finished his shift he dropped me off at the train station and handed me $7 for the fare. Dude probably saved my life and I can't even remember his name. Every couple of years I hospitalize a college bro due to his hypothermic, drunk, and left for dead in a snowbank, usually by his fellow brothers. A very specific and recurrent scenario. This is how my cousins died. Brother and sister were super close, got into meth, and decided to walk home. The cops assume high at night. They were found frozen to death in the morning. Feel so bad for their mom, as she was a single mom trying to stay clean, and lost them both in one night. Haven't heard from her since. While drunk, I sat down outside to rest for a moment on a freezing cold winter's night. Fortunately, a passerby noticed me and encouraged me to get inside. I figure I was probably there dozing for several minutes. Grown adult and choked on mozzarella cheese. Was only alone for 20 minutes. Can't imagine the obituary. I coughed, dislocated my C1-C2 vertebrae, and spent 6 months in a body halo. I don't know how close to death that counts. but be careful when you cough. Unplugging the washing machine with wet hands. My hand slipped onto the prongs while they were still partially in the outlet, and I think my heart stopped for a second before I yanked the plug free. Definitely do not recommend. Cut my inner ankle on a glass cup. For those who don't know, an artery is there and I literally sliced through it. Almost bled out. Thankfully didn't though. I almost drowned in the sea as a kid. A current pushed me away from the shore. Lifeguards saved me and were slapping my face. I thought it was a punishment, but they were resuscitating me. I was riding my bike to either the school or the supermarket. I can't remember. I was maybe like 12, 13 years old. In my town you can't really ride a bike on the street, so I had to use the sidewalk. On my way I had to ride across a bus stop with a ton of people just blocking the way for me and my bike. So I decided to hop onto the street and up onto the sidewalk again later. Those people were blocking my view, so I didn't see a bus coming my way. I just barely hopped onto the sidewalk and the bus missed me by a few centimeters. After that, I didn't really understand what happened. A few hours later it hit me that this could have ended rather bad for me. I was at Lake Bled in Slovenia and thought I could easily swim the distance between the shore and the island in the middle with a church on it. Boy was I wrong. About halfway I started getting exhausted and had trouble staying afloat. Then my body kicked into survival mode. The adrenaline started pumping, and I Michael Phelps the rest of the way to the island. I ended up paying €5 to have a boat take me back to shore after that harrowing experience. Going down the wooden stairs at my parents' house wearing socks. Slipped on the last step and banged my head on the wall. Woke up 3 hours later with Doggo by my side desperately licking my ear. Never told my parents. When I was a kid, I dipped my toes into a flooded creek to see how it felt. Proceeded to get sucked into said creek and nearly washed away. Thankfully, the creek had some overgrown areas, and I was able to cling to a tree in the middle of the floodwater and scream for help. This happened directly behind my house, so my dog heard me, alerted my dad, and my dad managed to rescue me. What makes this extra stupid was that I was trying to prevent my friend at the time from doing the same thing. He wanted to surf down the creek on a snow sled. I was following him, telling him it was a bad idea, and then like a dumbass, I ended up in the creek instead. He also gave me shit afterwards for ruining his stunt. Kids are ducking stupid, I guess. Choked on a small potato at the Pizza Hut salad bar. Completely lodged in my throat. I raced to the loo and shoved my fingers down my throat, and it popped out. Walked back to my table and finished my salad. Edit: I was with my boyfriend. He did nothing. I grabbed the waitress's arm. All she did was say, "Is she okay?" to my boyfriend. Hence running to the loo to deal with it myself.